Hello and welcome to CGTN's special program on Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Peru.
And I'm Pan Zheng in Beijing. And earlier, President Xi Jinping arrived in the capital, Lima, kicking off his second visit to the Latin American country.
Right, and Peruvian President Dina Boluarte will hold a welcome ceremony for the Chinese president.
That's right, and the two presidents will also attend the inauguration ceremony of Chancay Port via video. It's Peru's first large-scale transportation infrastructure project in cooperation with the Chinese side.
Right, and we'll bring you the latest coverage and also dive into the deep interconnectivity between the two countries as important regional and global partners sitting across the Pacific, but bonded closely by the Belt and Road Initiative.
Exactly, and now let's get more updates from this important visit. Chinese President Xi Jinping has hailed the long-standing friendship between China and Peru. He made remarks in a written statement upon arrival in Peru's capital Lima for a state visit and the 31st APEC economic leaders meeting. The Chinese president applauded the deepening bilateral relations in recent years between two sides. He said through joint efforts, the visit will take their comprehensive strategic partnership to a new level and push for more achievements in practical cooperation in various fields. President Xi Jinping expressed a willingness to work with all parties for an open Asia-Pacific economy to promote world economic growth and jointly build an Asia-Pacific community with a shared future.
Right, and our correspondent Zhao Yunfei is at the Government Palace, where Peruvian President Dina Boluarte will hold bilateral talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. So, Yunfei, we can hear the music sounding behind you. What can we expect from the meetings and also the welcoming ceremony?
Dongning and Pandeng, now the honor guards are rehearsing and you can hear the national anthem of China. Certainly the welcome ceremony held by Peruvian President Dina Boluarte to President Xi Jinping will take place anytime from now. Now certainly this is a great opportunity for the two countries to elevate their friendship. So a lot of things are being discussed about. You mentioned about the Chancay port. There's also the free trade agreement. Just because Peru is one of the countries, one of the first countries that has signed the free trade agreement in Latin America with China, and that was back in 2009 when they signed the ceremony. And President Xi really witnessed back then the signing ceremony. He was the vice president, and then so certainly in this June, the two countries have reached an agreement for the upgradation of the free trade agreement. So that is something that we are expecting, whether there's more actions taking place. You also mentioned about the Chancay port. We would like to say that the cooperation, it's really something that not only benefit Peru itself, but also beyond the Latin America region. Now, as upon President Xi's arrival, I also speak with some local residents. Some are Chinese, some are Peruvian, who have also expressed their excitement of the visit of President Xi.
I think this state visit indicates a new level of relations between China and Peru. This will help the two countries expand cooperation in various fields, such as the economy, education, technology, culture exchange, and logistics.
Well, I'm interested in the friendship between China and Peru. It's always a blessing to have both cultures pushing during all these years. It's amazing to see the importance that it has in the APEC forum and in the commercial relationships between both countries. So I'm really happy and really excited to see it.
I'm a tunnel engineer of Lima Subway Line 2. This is a representative project of the cooperation between China and Peru in infrastructure construction. I hope President Xi's state visit can deepen friendship between China and Peru and promote development in culture, energy, mining, and infrastructure for the two countries.
Local newspaper also published a signed article by President Xi. Within this signed article, about 1/3 of the content about the people-to-people bond and how the two countries should further strengthen the exchanges from cultural-wise. So certainly the two countries are not only celebrating, their ties in trade, but also their ties from the people-wise and cultural-wise. So certainly the welcome ceremony also kicks off President Xi's 6th visit to Latin America. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Zhao Yunfei reporting from Lima. And now let's go to our correspondent Dan Collins, and he's now outside the government palace where the welcome ceremony is going to happen. We'll cross over to him later on in the show. Well, Zhao Yunfei actually just mentioned the article written by President Xi. Indeed, ahead of the visit, a Peruvian newspaper published a signed article by President Xi Jinping titled "China-Peru Friendship Setting Sail Towards an Even Brighter Future." Take a look.
Chinese President Xi Jinping hailed the traditional friendship between China and Peru and said the bond of friendship and affection between the two sides has become stronger through win-win cooperation. He also said China and Peru should expand and deepen mutually beneficial cooperation and make it more responsive to the requirements of the new era. During the visit, President Xi and Peruvian President Dina Boluarte will attend the inauguration ceremony of Chancay Port via video. The project will significantly reduce the sea shipping time between Peru and China. It will also enable Peru to become a regional connectivity hub. President Xi said China and Peru should strengthen exchange and cooperation among civilizations. He also said China firmly supports Peru's presidency of APEC and will work closely with Peru to make new contributions to building an Asia-Pacific community with a shared future. He said China is ready to join Peru in embracing a broader vision and grasping the underlying trends of the times as the world is undergoing faster transformation.
Right now, let's go back to our correspondent Dan Collins, who is now outside the government palace, where Peruvian President Boluarte will hold a welcome ceremony for President Xi. Dan, hello there. So how are the preparations going?
Hello there. As you can see, we're in the what's called the patio of honor, and you can just hear now the band has just struck up behind me. The presidential guard, known here as the Husares de Junín. Last-minute preparations for the arrival of President Xi Jinping for this important meeting with his counterpart Dina Boluarte, and the pair are expected to discuss some important bilateral agreements. Some more agreements will be signed. They're also talking about optimizing the existing free trade agreement between the two countries, and also as President Xi has said in a statement on arrival, they will be looking to optimize also the strategic comprehensive partnership between the two countries. But of course, the centerpiece of this state visit by President Xi is the inauguration of the Chancay megaport, which will be viewed by both presidents here inside the government palace behind me. They'll be watching it from via video link. The port is about 80 kilometers north of the capital, Lima, and this port is expected by experts to be an incredibly important trade hub, not just for China and Peru, but also for Latin America and the broader Asia region. So this will benefit all of the 21 APEC economies who are assembled here in Lima for the APEC Leaders Week. So this is seen to be an incredibly important visit. There's a lot of expectation and optimism here in Peru, and it's quite significant, of course, that President Xi has begun his visit with this visit to the government palace, which you can see behind me.
Indeed, thank you very much. Dan Collins reporting from Lima. Well, indeed, this grand welcoming ceremony is going to be a very good start for President Xi to kick off his state visit. And for some insight into this visit, let's bring in Mr. Jose Carlos Feliciano, Associate Director at the Center for China and Asia Pacific Studies at the University of the Pacific. Thank you for joining us in our special program on President Xi's special state visit to Peru. So, Mr. Feliciano, in your view, how does the increased interaction between China and Peru promote the deepening of their comprehensive strategic partnership, and what specific opportunities are there to bring to both sides?
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to share a little bit about this important meeting. This is the third time that probably our presidents will meet in the span of a year. So we expect, for instance, an increase in our level of cooperation. For instance, it's expected that we sign a free trade agreement 2.0. So after 15 years, the flow of commerce between our countries has been increasing a lot. So we also believe that in this meeting, there will be another signing of different memorandums of understanding as well as agreements, for instance, for new agricultural products, and also explore new opportunities for technical cooperation and investment, right? We also expect probably more agreements as well as more opportunities to welcome Chinese investment. Nowadays, there are around 200 companies, Chinese companies operating in our country. So we're expecting an evolution of this, including new fields and new areas. In terms of the challenges, of course, at least we see that there is still this challenge of diversification in terms of the trading, because most of the exports that Peru do with China is essentially raw materials, right? So we need to increase our diversification and cooperation in those fields. And well, in terms of the opportunities, as we heard before, I think the Shanghai port is a really important milestone of the cooperation between Peru and China. And it would probably be a break point as it creates a direct route from South America to Asia, right? The idea of becoming a regional hub, it's very important because we are looking at this port, that it's probably the most advanced port infrastructure in the region. And this will help us, of course, to optimize our trading with China, reducing costs, as well as optimizing the efficiency from both sides.
Well, Mr. Feliciano, let's expand the scope a little bit, talking about the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting, also hosted by Peru this time. What kind of consensus are you expecting from this multilateral platform for Asia-Pacific economies? And in that context, how would you view the potential of China-Peru relations?
Yeah, well, APEC Peru in this meeting has set three priorities, right? Trade and investment for inclusive and interconnected world growth, innovation and digitalization to promote transition to formal and global economy, and sustainable growth for resilient development. So in terms of China and Peru, this is very well connected because, for instance, we do see that there is a closer relationship with China in terms, for instance, about the digital economy, right? We all know that, I mean, Chinese digital economy is one of the most advanced in the world. So we expect that both countries promote the cross-border commerce, as well as in the case of Peru, we think that we can actually become thanks to our geographical situation and location, we would like to become an IT hub. So we expect that a lot of Chinese investment in terms of digital companies can also come to Peru and establish in Peru. We also think that the energy transition, it's a very big area of cooperation, especially because since China has this goal of becoming neutral carbon by 2060, this will create, of course, a very important demand of different minerals from this region. But at the same time, since China has advanced a lot in these fields, we really need to look at how China is going to help in the energy transition of our own economies, right? So that is extremely important to look at. And last but not least, I think the education and culture, it's a very important field that we also need to strengthen, especially because in this case, both cultures, Peru and China, are ancient civilizations, right, with more than 5,000 years of history. So there's a lot of room for cooperation in terms of creating products together that even involve maybe some technology like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and so on. So I do think that this year APEC priorities has for sure a lot of connection between the Peru and China cooperation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jose Carlos Feliciano in Lima. For more on this, let's cross live to our reporter Chen Tong, standing by at Chancay Port, very close to Lima. Hello, Chen Tong, bring us up to date from where you are.
Hello, Pandan. Let me tell you, there's an expression quite popular here in Peru. It's called from Chancay to Shanghai. Everybody knows it. Well, we spent a couple of days in the capital, Lima, and even local residents sitting next to us at the restaurants, they know the expression. And I've also talked to some journalists like me who are waiting here at the Chancay Port, and they also know this expression. Well, the Chancay Port is a milestone, a gateway to connect Asia with Latin America. Before the establishment of the Chancay Port, well, cargoes that exported from Peru to China, they need to make transfers in Central America or North America, or go to Hong Kong first and then go to Chinese mainland. It takes more than 2 months or even longer for cargoes to be shipped from Peru to China. But starting from today, the expression from Chancay to Shanghai has finally become a reality. The Chancay Port allows the transit time to be shortened to between 25 and 35 days. That means residents in China, they will have better opportunities to taste fresher coffee, blueberries, and avocados from Latin America. And it's estimated the Chancay Port will generate $4.5 billion of annual revenue for Peru. That's accounting for 1.8% of the GDP in Peru and creating thousands of direct and indirect jobs. So it's the epitome of the bilateral tie between China and Peru. But it's far more than that, because cargoes that exported from Latin America to China, they can make a stop in Shanghai first and then go to South Korea or Japan or Southeast Asian nations. And APEC member economies, they account for 60% of the global GDP. So the Chancay Port is not only an epitome of the cooperation between China and Peru, it's actually a milestone, a gateway to bring the two sides of the Pacific Ocean closer. Pandan.
Thank you very much, our reporter Chen Tong at Chancay Port in Peru. And earlier we just reported that Chinese President Xi Jinping has published a signed article on a Peruvian newspaper titled China-Peru Friendship Setting Sail Toward an Even Brighter Future. So how has the article been received in Peru? As our reporter Huang Fei finds out, President Xi Jinping's message is resonating with people across the country there.
86-year-old retiree Robino Villacota says he is a big fan of China, having read many books about the country.
Today, an important article was published in El Peruano about the visit of China's president to our country. I admire China for its vast achievements and resilience in becoming the world's second largest economy. I ran several blocks to grab my copy. Everything written here is very important, and I'm happy China and Peru are having a partnership, and culturally we are united.
President Xi's visit brings new economic opportunities. He highlighted investments in mining and infrastructure, including the new Chancay Port, South America's first smart port. It's expected to generate over 8,000 jobs and boost Peru's economy by billions.
I'm really excited, for example, about a project that is in Chancay, because I have a lot of friends from that place. As your president mentioned, here says the most important is to give the best for people. And I think that your president is doing that.
As President Xi wrote in his article, bringing benefit to the people is the fundamental principle for governance. In a world faced with rapid transformation, China and Peru stand together here at APEC, committed to true multilateralism and building a balanced, multipolar world order. Huang Fei, CGTN, Lima in Peru.
Now for more insight, we're joined in the studio by Professor Zheng Gun and Mr. Edgar Perez from Peru. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. Mr. Perez, I'd like to start with you, if you don't mind, from your personal journey from Peru to China. Now, from your career path, your life decisions, how do you see the developing ties between China and Peru?
Well, thank you for the invitation. I see that overall the relationship is fruitful relationship for both parties. The relationship, of course, is growing, and as an example, you can find me here in Beijing at this moment. In general, I think that from the beginning of the trade of the APEC relationship, I think the growth of the trade commerce between these two countries has grown increasingly. Even more so, China is also one of the biggest investors in Peru. More than $30 billion has been invested in different companies in Peru. And that's something that is going to continue growing. Why? Because China has a lot of potential in many different industries that Peru still needs access to. If you look at the statistics in Peru, probably there's still a ratio of poverty of 27%, meaning that there is still opportunities for many people to be involved in the economy. And I think that's something that we can learn from China as it has gone to similar transformation decades ago.
Right, and John, actually President Xi is no stranger to Peru. Actually, he earlier visited Peru as early as 1990s, and as president, he visited Peru in 2016 and spoke at the National Congress at the time. And Peruvian President Boluarte visited China this June, and then he's now in Lima again. So how do those high-profile visits between those two countries actually helped to enhance bilateral relations?
Well, absolutely. I think the interaction between countries' leaders is extremely important in enhancing the relationship between the two sides. As a matter of fact, I actually didn't know President Xi's first trip you mentioned, as early as you said 2009, right? And I think it's great to see that the President Xi has been to Peru a couple of times already, and this time against the backdrop of opening of this mega
we're
project.
Talking about this, we're watching live footage from government palace, close to the government palace in Lima, a welcoming ceremony held by Peruvian President Dina Boluarte is about to start to welcome Chinese President Xi Jinping, and also marking the start of President Xi Jinping's state visit to Peru. And of course, we'll keep you updated. You're now watching live footage from Lima.
We're expecting both very official honor guards performance as well as some local culture performance as well. Well, talking about this visit, it is significant to both sides, to bilateral relations actually, especially the exchange of high-profile visits.
Right. I think I was about to say that this visit corresponds to the opening up of this mega project. Essentially, as we discussed previously, it's opening a new chapter of cooperation between the two sides, and this is also a very important moment in the history of APEC. Peru being the host country for the APEC meeting. I think in the context of the change of the presidency of the United States, in his view, APEC is probably not so much relevant anymore. But I think at least China is sticking to APEC, and I think this time around, the bilateral relationship between Peru and China is probably going to be one of the centerpieces of the APEC summit this time. There's a lot of talk about the bilateral relationships, a lot of talk about the economic relationship between the two countries. So I think the theme of APEC, which is mostly about economic integration across the Pacific Ocean, it's mostly about free trade agreements between the member countries, is still going to stay there. It's not going to go away. Even the United States is sort of shifting away from the APEC focus, shifting away from free trade. Washington doesn't talk about free trade anymore. China is still very much holding this important banner of free trade, and I think this project, this port project, as well as the booming trade between China and Latin America in general, Peru in specific, it testifies China's commitment to free trade.
As we just heard from our reporters, Mr. Perez, one of the key messages from President Xi Jinping this time is how governance can actually bring benefits to people on both sides. Of course, that means China and Peru. So talking about this flagship project to be inaugurated this time, Chancay Port, how can it bring real benefits to people in Peru?
Well, real benefits are actually very practical. Think about today. You must have been living under a rock if you didn't hear about artificial intelligence, which is a field, of course, that is being popularized in the last couple of years. Now, when you think about these technologies, all people need to be involved there. We think that these type of technologies will eventually steal some jobs, but to be honest with you, people embracing these technologies will actually thrive. And it's the people who actually lack these opportunities that will eventually be transformed. Now, if you want to be able to get there, you need to have access to the internet. And Peru has a problem there. If you look at the country, only 72% is the internet penetration in the country, meaning that there's still 28% of the population that cannot have access to the internet, which is the basic path to get access to these technologies. China is a great example when this penetration actually is much higher, and of course they are actually developing and being one of the leading countries in the development of this technology. So really, this deployment of these technologies in Peru can actually create real benefits for people to increase their quality of life, and that's something very meaningful that we can also learn from the country.
Right.
So you believe that technology could be one of the sectors with biggest potentials for the two countries' cooperation in the near future?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the items that are discussed in the upgrade of the free trade agreement between Peru and China incorporates the benefits from digital economies. As you know, anything related to digital transformation requires infrastructure. And when you think about infrastructure, we talk about 5G networks, we talk about broadband access, and that's something where Chinese companies have a lot of experience and can help Peru to actually leapfrog technology changes.
Well, trade relations actually indeed benefit the people from both countries. So John, how do you think the free trade agreements, especially the anticipated upgrade of the FTA between the two countries, will further enhance the already good or benign trade relations and economic ties?
Yeah, I'm guessing there will be several more advanced aspects of free trade being probably incorporated in this round of upgrade of the free trade agreement that was signed 15 years ago. Things reflecting, digital economy, things reflecting investment, for example, investment protection, for example. These things probably will be incorporated into this upgrade. And I think it's important because as Eric has been talking about, the importance of the telecom infrastructure. There are a lot of opportunities for Chinese companies actually. Huawei, probably can, and ZTE as well. They can play a leading role in terms of providing a digital and telecom infrastructure where more people in Peru can have access to the internet, have more people have access to the 5G wireless signals. These are basic infrastructures can greatly contribute to the economic growth down the road. So I think these kind of investments, as well as other types of investments from Chinese companies, will potentially happen in my view. And we need to have a sort of investment protection agreement, as China has signed this kind of a bilateral investment protection agreements with many countries. It's probably going to follow in the next round of upgrade. So I think from that regard, it's a great thing to see these things are happening.
Right. So actually, you mean that this free trade agreement and also the trade protection agreement that you should suggest each country to sign will actually maximize the benefits of both countries economically?
Absolutely. I think in today's world, look at countries like China and Peru. It's not just about trade, I guess, right? It's about infrastructure build out. It's about Chinese companies going to Peru to do manufacturing, making investment. So all these things are investments basically. And in my view, we need to have a sort of institutionalized mechanism to make sure that these investments are protected and they will be effective in that country. So I think it's actually a quite standard practice to have some kind of an investment agreement to follow up with a free trade agreement, which is mostly about tariffs and other aspects of trade. I think we need to go beyond that stage and move into more advanced levels of free trade agreement as well as the investment agreement.
And talking about the connectivity, that's kind of the pillar of the Belt and Road Initiative, isn't it? So it's not only about physical connectivity, it's also about policy alignment, decision-making alignment. So, Mr. Perez, in this regard, how do you see China and Peru's cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative so far?
I think it's going to be very significant for Peru. Obviously, if you look at the country, most of the infrastructure, advanced infrastructure in the country is mostly focused on the biggest cities. Lima, for example, the capital, accommodates 8 million people, which is 1/3 of the population. That means that almost 16 million people are still lacking some of the basic services unless you are located close to a major metropolitan area, meaning that there's an opportunity there for them to improve.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. So obviously, when you think about the experience that China has been going through in the last decades, I think there is a lot that we can use. Thinking about infrastructure, roads, highways, bridges, tunnels, there is still a lot to do in Peru. In fact, I think I read that there is a portfolio of opportunities for companies to invest in Peru it's almost about $100 billion, meaning the opportunities are there. And if you're looking for a big country, which is in case of Peru, who is actually the third biggest country in South America, there are going to be opportunities for Chinese companies too.
As we're talking about China-Peru ties, we're also watching live footage from Lima. This is the government palace. A welcoming ceremony held by Peruvian President Dina Boluarte is about to start to welcome Chinese President Xi Jinping to start his state visit to Peru.
And after the welcoming ceremony, President Xi Jinping is expected to have a talk with the Peruvian President Boluarte for topics that are expected to be the enhanced FTA and enhanced bilateral relations. And deals will be signed at the witness of both presidents as well.
And from a written statement upon his arrival, President Xi Jinping said he will hold in-depth exchanges with his Peruvian counterparts, Boluarte, to discuss key bilateral issues, including the substantial completion of the upgraded China-Peru Free Trade Agreement, as we've been reporting. And this upgraded agreement is expected to bring new economic opportunities for both countries and reflects Peru's growing role as a gateway for Chinese investment and trade in Latin America. Just to bring you a little bit background on that, China has been Peru's largest trading partner for over a decade. And this strengthened agreement underscores the deepening economic ties that have made China a cornerstone of Peru's trade landscape.
And what's in spotlight is, of course, the upcoming inauguration of the Shanghai port. This is a significant highlight of this visit. Indeed, the upcoming inauguration of the Shanghai port, President Xi and President Boluarte will be witnessing through video. This is mentioned in President's signed article on the Peruvian newspaper. It is a strategic project developed with Chinese investment under the Belt and Road framework. The Shanghai port, nearing completion, is actually 98% of completion, is poised to be the most modern port in the Pacific coast of South America and a direct maritime gateway between Peru and Asia. And this project stands as a symbol of the mutual commitment of both nations to create a thriving Pacific partnership. And President Xi's vision for this port, from which the phrase from Shanghai to Shanghai is already well-known phrase to both countries, it has gained popularity, speaks to the ambition of both nations to foster a prosperous new route for trade, benefiting not only Peru, but also neighboring countries in Latin America.
And you've been watching live footage from Lima. This is the government palace there. A welcoming ceremony will be starting very soon for Chinese President Xi Jinping's state visit to Peru. As we've been talking about this flagship project between China and Peru, that is the Shanghai port, and many observers have been saying that this is also an example of mutually beneficial cooperation. And some estimations here, the port is projected to generate 4.5 billion in annual economic benefits, accounting for about 1/8% of Peru's GDP. So the importance of it in both economic and developmental terms cannot be underestimated. So, Mr. Perez, earlier we're talking about the spirit of mutually beneficial cooperation between China and Peru. We've been talking about new frontiers like technological cooperation, and earlier you were talking about the need for infrastructure in Peru, right?
Absolutely. I think Peru has been lacking infrastructure for a long time. It's only since 1989 that Peru has actually been exploring this potential agreement joining APEC. It was 1998 when Peru joined for the first time this agreement, and I think from that moment on, Peru has experienced a rebirth. Peru has been maintaining a stable economic growth around 3, 4, 5% in the region, which actually has been very unique, meaning that there is still opportunities to grow. Now, when you think about cooperation in infrastructure, obviously that's something that Peru needs. Only the metropolitan areas actually accumulate most of this infrastructure target, but if you look at Peru, the population is outside. Peru is a very unequal country in terms of regions. You can have the coast connected to the Pacific Ocean. You can also have the Andes, which is a very difficult terrain, and then you also have the jungle, which is, again, another complicated area to get access to. So when you look at connecting Peru, it's really a difficult problem. And I think we're looking for examples when countries are actually have developed infrastructure in that type of circumstances.
Right, and we've talked a lot about the Shanghai port. It is in the spotlight, as we mentioned. But what can this port really substantially bring to the country? How can China and Peru further promote supply chain diversification through this channel from Shanghai to Shanghai?
Well, let me first say that the statement of from Shanghai to Shanghai it is really an upgrade to the statement of from China to Peru, right? I mean, the phrase from China to Peru is usually used to describe very long distance, but today we have shortened that long distance in terms of the time to reach for cargoes to reach the east to reach Shanghai from Peru or from Shanghai to Peru. So I think this is actually a great achievement. I think it's a monumental achievement moving forward. Now, with respect to the your question about what this port purposes of this port serves, I think it's more than just about from Shanghai to Shanghai. I think the bilateral trade between the two countries is certainly very important, but many countries also stand to benefit from this connectivity as well. Surrounding countries of Peru, some of the cargoes don't have to go through other ports. They can go to Shanghai and be shipped to Asia, and also in countries in Asia can also benefit from this connectivity as well. Countries like South Korea, Japan, these are actually very large consumer markets for products from Peru and other surrounding countries in Latin America. So I think this connectivity generates benefits for a host of countries on both sides of the Pacific Ocean, and certainly this is very important manifestation of the original theme of APEC, that is all about regional integration across the Pacific Ocean. And this is a live example of exactly what's happening right now. And it's about to happen in the future.
So it's shortened time, shortened distance, but more opportunities for both countries. So, all right, let's cross over. Let's move to Lima, to the government palace, where the welcoming ceremony is being held for President Xi's state visit to Peru. I can see that the honor guards as well as the horses are already ready for welcoming President Xi's visit.
Mr. Perez, help us understand the local customs here. Is this kind of a show of highest honor to a guest from afar, this kind of ceremony, and all the honor guards and mounted honor guards all here?
Absolutely. It reminds me actually of the times when I was a kid in Peru watching the Independence Day anniversaries. So you will see definitely this type of recommendation when you see the president, for example, going from Palace of Government to the Congress to give a speech every July 28th, which is the day of the anniversary of Peru. So yes, that's a typical way we welcome our friends visiting the country.
Right.
President Xi Jinping's motorcade is arriving, and as the honor guards and the folk artists are getting ready to welcome him.
You're watching live footage from Lima. This is the welcoming ceremony held by Peruvian President Dina Boluarte for Chinese President Xi Jinping. The honor guards are ushering the way for the convoy of Chinese President Xi Jinping.
Right, and this welcome ceremony is hosted by Peruvian President Dina Boluarte to welcome the guest from China, President Xi Jinping, to Peru as part of his state visit, and also to attend the APEC leaders' informal meeting later on.
And China and Peru established diplomatic ties on November the 2nd, 1971. So this year marks the 53rd anniversary of bilateral ties between the two countries. And in 2013, the two sides elevated their bilateral ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership, a very high level of trust and cooperation between the two sides, and exchanges on different levels of government and even into societal and people-to-people levels have been very frequent. And talking about trade, China is Peru's largest trading partner, the largest export market, and the largest source of imports. And Peru is China's fourth largest trading partner in Latin America.
Right, you're watching the live footage from Lima at the government palace, where the grand welcoming ceremony is being held by the Peruvian President Boluarte to welcome President Xi, who is kicking off his state visit to the country, to Peru. And against the historical backdrop of Lima, the arrival of President Xi is a moment filled with significance, of course, symbolizing the enduring friendship and growing partnership between China and Peru. Peru actually became a signatory of BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, in 2019, reinforcing its role as a bridge connecting Asia with Latin America. And President Xi's visit also reflects China's unwavering support for Peru's hosting of 2024 APEC leaders' informal meeting.
And Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived at Government Palace to attend a welcoming ceremony held by his Peruvian counterpart Dina Boluarte. This is a very grand and warm welcoming ceremony.
Indeed, and
honor guards are welcoming Chinese President Xi Jinping.
That's the Peruvian national anthem, I guess?
Not exactly, but it's a very popular military song.
It's usually played at occasion, a solemn and grand occasion like this.
Of course, Independence Day, usually July 28th, as I said, the Independence Day of Peru, and also the following day we have military parade, when you see, of course, all the members of the military joining the president in a big demonstration.
Chinese President Xi Jinping is attending a welcoming ceremony for his state visit to Peru. This is live footage from Government Palace in Lima. Peruvian President Dina Boluarte is now shaking hands with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The two heads of state will hold talks very soon to discuss issues regarding the two countries' deepening cooperation and issues of common concern.
And their talk is expected to open more new avenues for bilateral cooperation in various fields. So, Mr. Perez, is this kind of a ceremony, welcoming ceremony, the highest level in Peru?
Absolutely. It's interesting that you mentioned the president of Peru. She actually hails from one of the provinces in Peru called Apurimac, which is actually the land of my parents. Both of them were born in Apurimac, which is a province up there in the highlands, very close to Cusco.
Now, Peruvian President Boluarte is introducing senior officials to Chinese President Xi Jinping. This is the welcoming ceremony held by the Peruvian president for President Xi Jinping's state visit to the country.
Right, and this state visit, brimming with rich symbolism and mutual goodwill, actually underscores the profound and steady relationship between China and Peru. And as President Xi and President Boluarte will be engaging in discussions and witness the signing of key agreements, this visit not only deepens the bilateral relationship but also sets a course for future cooperation across the Pacific. The warm welcome extended by Peru reflects the genuine friendship shared by the two nations and marks another milestone in the journey toward a shared destiny between China and Peru, and also to Latin America as well.
And as Professor Zheng just mentioned, exchanges at the highest level, highest political level between the two countries is very crucial for the direction of development of bilateral ties for the two countries. But it's not only about exchanges at highest level, actually exchanges at different levels of government and society have been very vibrant between China and Peru. And talking about governmental level alone, now the two sides have mechanisms on political consultation, economic cooperation, trade cooperation, agriculture, science and technology, and so on. And talking about people-to-people exchanges, are also very vibrant, isn't it, Mr. Perez?
Indeed, it's very easy in Beijing to find people from Peru coming here to attend prestigious universities such as Tsinghua University, Peking University. In fact, when I gave a class at Peking University a few months ago, I saw Peruvian students there, which is something really interesting because we definitely respect the quality of education that these Chinese universities provide.
And the Chinese community in Peru is also has been very strong and has been growing, right?
No, absolutely. From the moment that the first Chinese person arrived in Peru, probably before 1850, you will see a community growing. Many people from China came to Peru. I mean, it's more than 100 years ago that they arrived there, and many of them stayed. They opened restaurants, they started families.
Indeed.
They started
now let's
businesses.
cross live to Lima. The national anthem of the People's Republic of China. National anthem of Peru.
You're now watching the live footage of the grand welcome ceremony held by Peruvian President
Excelentísima
Boluarte.
señora Presidenta Constitucional de la República, la ceremonia ha terminado. Permiso concedido. Voy a continuar, señora Presidenta.
Watching live footage from Government Palace in Lima. After the national anthems of the two countries, the two presidents greeting the honor guards and crowd at the site. Now they're entering the Government Palace to hope for more talks.
Right, and amid a vibrant display of ceremony and hospitality, Peruvian President Dina Boluarte welcomed Chinese President Xi Jinping to Peru as part of his state visit and to attend the APEC summit afterwards as well. Well, after this very grand hospital welcome ceremony, the state visit by President Xi Jinping to Peru is going to officially start, and their talks will cover a variety of fields in the bilateral relations. So what specific area, Mr. Perez, would you like to look into?
Well, I think there are going to be many different areas. In one part, as we mentioned before, infrastructure is a very important component of this relationship. Peru not only needs basic infrastructure, but eventually also more advanced infrastructure to be able to take advantage of technology developing today. That's a key part. And also when you think about the exchange of experiences, I think China for the last decades has gone through a very impressive development process. That is something we can learn from in Peru as well. When there is still so much still poverty, some areas that definitely would like to be involved with the global economy. One of the goals of the APEC in this particular edition has been to incorporate many of the SMEs, small enterprises that are not really part of these developments in the economy. Even in Peru, we also have high levels of informality, meaning that many companies are not part of the official range of opportunities to be taken advantage of. So that's something that we need to incorporate. The informality in Peru, this involvement of small enterprises, maybe some companies started by vulnerable populations, those are also segments that need to be incorporated to be part of this development. And we hope also the visit of the Chinese president to Peru will help us to go into this goal.
And in his written statement upon arrival, Professor Gong, President Xi Jinping said his talks with the Peruvian president this time will focus on practical cooperation. What's your understanding of this term, practical cooperation?
Well, I think practical cooperation probably mostly manifesting areas that you've just mentioned, economic areas. But I can also think of, like people-to-people exchanges. One thing that I can immediately think of is the tourism industry, right? I mean, we don't see a lot of Chinese tourists visiting Peru, and it's going to be a huge market. It's an exotic place to a lot of people here in China. I've never been there before. I think I got an education of the national anthem, in Peru. And I think a lot of people would be very interested in visiting that country. But aside from all these sort of practical issues, I'm also very certain that both leaders would also discuss the political situation in the region, as well as the relationship between China and Peru. And I think there's a lot to discuss in a very fastly changing world. We're actually facing a rapidly changing world that pose challenges probably. So I think it will have implications for the two countries' bilateral relationships. I think these things are probably also on the table for the two leaders to discuss.
Right, we're going to continue our discussions as well as our special coverage on President Xi's visit to Peru a moment later. Before all that, let's cross over to our Washington counterpart, Asiya Namda, for more updates.
Good morning to you, Ling Dongning and Pandong. Peru, of course, was one of the first Latin American countries to establish diplomatic relations with China. For more on their interactions, joining me now is Sebastian Adins. He's a professor of international relations at Catholic University of Peru. Professor, we've obviously been covering a lot about China and Peru's bilateral relationship and President Xi Jinping's trip, state visit, and also him attending APEC. What do you see, I should emphasize, as perhaps the highlight of his trip to Peru?
But thanks to you. Thank you for having me. First of all, as you all know, there is a lot of expectation here in Peru, and I would say in the whole of Latin America, because Xi Jinping and the Peruvian President Dina Boluarte, they will, from the presidential palace, witness the inauguration of the first stage of the Chancay port. So that's maybe the most important topic the local press is talking about. And of course, it's again a new point in a historic relationship between Peru and the People's Republic.
Well, talk about the significance of this port. Why is it such a big deal?
Well, first of all, it's a lot of money. We are just seeing the inauguration of the first stage. It's worth more or less $1.3 billion. Normally, the whole project will be finished by, I think it's 2034. In total, we are talking about $3.4 billion. And as you all know, we are witnessing some geopolitical tensions between the People's Republic and the United States. And of course, in Peru, we are part of Latin America. We have been a part of the sphere of influence of the United States. So, of course, it's very important for, let's say, the trade between Peru and China and Asia in general. But of course, there's also some geopolitical aspect to this project.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that, Professor. Peru clearly in a delicate balancing act. How does it navigate the good relationship with the United States as well as China?
I think Peru is trying to apply a very common foreign policy in the southeast part of Asia. It's called hedging. So when you hear Peruvian presidents or even some diplomatics from Peru, they try to stress that China is a special trade partner and an economic partner. But when it comes to political issues or even military topics, then it's the United States that is the most important partner. So the whole time when you hear official declarations or even some interviews in the local media, you can hear this message. We are not talking about China as an ally, but of course, for the development of Peru, for even some extra trade topics, it's a crucial partner.
And how do you think China's growing influence, not just in Peru, but really in all of Latin America, how is that playing out in the Western world?
It causes a lot of concern, but of course, Peru and in general, Latin America are still developing countries. And the thing is that I was born in Belgium. When you look at the investments from the European Union or even from the United States, we are seeing a decline. So when you look or when you talk to some representatives of the Peruvian governments in general, they will say you, of course, Washington is asking a lot, but they offer very little. I will give you an example. Some years ago, a Chinese company bought a company here that provides electricity. Well, it was a branch from Sempra, and Sempra, as you know, it's a U.S. company. So, of course, when you hear the official declarations, Washington is concerned, but when you look at the numbers, we can see that there is a decline in the economic presence of the U.S. or the West in general.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Sebastian Adins.
Thank you.
Now, Peru was the first country in Latin America to enter a free trade deal with China, and a series of free trade agreements, well, they've turned China into one of Latin America's top trading partners. Dan Collins has that part of the story.
At a time of historic Chinese engagement in Latin America, 5 countries in the region have free trade agreements with the Asian powerhouse. Among the latest to ink trade agreements with China, Ecuador.
This is the biggest consumer market in the world. It represents 1.4 billion consumers. So for Ecuador, this is really important because we are an agricultural and agri-export powerhouse now in South America, but we don't get the best market access.
Cut flowers are Ecuador's third biggest export. The trade deal between the two countries allowed for reduced or no tariffs for 99% of Ecuador's exports to China, particularly agricultural products. This century, China has swiftly risen to become Latin America's major trade partner, a development that has transformed the economic dynamics in the region. In just 2 decades, trade between China and Latin America has grown by 25 times. Bilateral trade between China and the region went from $12 billion in 2000 to $315 billion in 2020. Two of the countries that have benefited perhaps the most from having a free trade agreement with China are Chile and Peru.
China has been a trade partner for Peru for many years. No? If you see a 20-year span, our exports have multiplied by 20 in the last 20 years. So every year, Peruvian exports has been increasing in a very interesting growth rate.
Trade between Peru and China has soared, doubling from 2012 to 33 billion in 2022. Since the late 2000s, Peru has steadily built up more than 20 other bilateral deals for its export-heavy economy, most of them in the Asia-Pacific region.
20 years ago, the agribusiness sector exported $900 million. Now it exports $10 billion, 10 times more. This is significant because it has encouraged more formal employment.
As of 2022, the trade volume between China and Latin America reached a historic high of more than $480 billion. Experts say, thanks to the Belt and Road Initiative and free trade agreements, that number could grow even more in the coming years. Dan Collins, CGTN, Lima.
Well, Peru has long captivated travelers with its historic wonders like Machu Picchu, and APEC is once again shining a spotlight on these popular and stunning destinations. CGTN's Mike Walters spoke to Jennifer Pizarro of tourism agency Prom Peru.
Talk to me about APEC. It's obviously an opportunity. You've got all of these people coming in. You've got a CEO summit. You've got the leaders coming in. It's a great time to show off Peru. What are you hoping to achieve?
Well, we would like to show that Peru is a beautiful country as a destination for tourists. We work a lot to promote our country in the Asian countries. So we look forward to welcoming them and see the Latin America, care and hospitality for all these visitors that we have in the city.
A lot of APEC members. One that obviously jumps out is China because it's a great market. And in terms of marketing to China, you have different strategies. Can you talk about that? And also, what it's very much a tourist destination for a lot of Chinese, right?
Yes, actually, it's the first market from Asia to Peru. The outbound tourists from Asia, the first one is Chinese market. And our strategy mainly is digital. We work closely with Chinese companies on site. We have 2 offices, 2 Prom Peru offices in Beijing and Shanghai, and they work together with us. But what we do is that our strategy is digital marketing to promote Peru, creating content. We're going to all the important trade events in China, specifically talking to China and other APEC markets. We are investing, a lot of budget to promote the marketing campaigns in these countries. The trade also, we have a role that we also help Peruvian companies in tourism to be connected to the buyers in these Asian countries.
How's it changed over time? Because it seems to me like it used to be people would go, but now there's they want, it's not just the destination, it's like, I want to have an experience, that I've never had before. And of course, clearly there's a lot here in that regard. How has tourism changed, would you say, over the years?
Well, over the years in Peru, we have different type of experiences and products. We know sustainability is really important now for the travelers in general. So we promote tourism-based community, experiences. We work a lot with all our private sectors, so we can promote these new experiences, new hotels, new boutique hotels that we have been developing during the years, specifically during the pandemic. That you have to adjust to the new traveler post-COVID. So that's what we've done in terms of promoting, but also the Peruvian companies around here, they know that, and they provide these type of experiences that are more down to earth, more sustainable, with circular economy going on, and providing to the community that you visit as well.
If someone's watching this and they live in the Asia Pacific region and they're fascinated by what you're talking about, do you have kind of an itinerary and how much time they should spend when they come to Peru?
Of course, they have to stop in Lima at least 2 nights to try our food here. The best restaurants, as you mentioned, we have the best restaurants and also the best street food, different type of food. After Lima, you go to the Sacred Valley in Cusco to get, the altitude climate and to get used to the altitude. Then Machu Picchu, of course. Then Cusco City, a beautiful city where you have museums, nightlife. And then you have more time to go to the Amazon River. You can do some river cruising in Loreto in the Amazon River, or some lodges in Puerto Maldonado. And of course, Peru has it all. So you can visit Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake in the world, or you can visit the Colca Canyon. So in every place you will find exquisite cuisine.
So what do you hope comes out of this week?
Well, to position it as a beautiful destination for the APEC visitors, they will see as much as they can do the exquisite cuisine that we have in Peru. And we invite everybody to visit our country, to spend some days here in Lima as well, a beautiful city, and to help us promote also sustainable tourism, because that's the people need as well to receive all visitors in these places.
And again, that was Jennifer Pizarro talking about tourism with my colleague Mike Walter. And that's it from me here in Washington. Pondong and Li Dongning, back to you in Beijing.
All right, thank you very much, Asian Amdar from Washington, D.C. Now let's turn back to our studio guests, Mr. Perez and Mr. Zhonggong as well. Well, Mr. Perez, actually, our Washington counterpart and his guest talked about tourism. Although we are thousands of miles away between China and Peru, the tourism industry is still booming, and people-to-people exchange is really important in terms of any kind of bilateral relations between any two countries. Actually, Chinese culture has a strong influence already in Peru. You call Chinese people in Spanish as paisano, right? Meaning fellow countryman. Mm-hmm. And the term chifa to describe the Chinese restaurant there. Chifa is actually from 吃饭 in Chinese, meaning to eat or eat meals. So we are seeing very strong Chinese cultural presence there. How do you see this kind of a terminology and also popularity of Chinese cuisine in Peru to showcase Chinese, the Peruvians' openness as well as closeness to Chinese culture?
Well, if you think about Peruvian restaurants, you will definitely see that a very important type of Peruvian restaurants include the chifas. And as you said, that's Chinese food that obviously incorporates some typical terms like chaufa. For example, chaufa is fried rice, which is a chaufa. And we call it chaufa not knowing why it's called chaufa.
Almost exactly the same pronunciation.
It's pretty much the same dish, but obviously from two different places. We didn't know that was the connection. But yes, I think the Chinese people who came to Peru more than 100 years ago, they brought that richness of culture and also foods. And that's something that we Peruvians have grown used to. In fact, I think more than 1 million Peruvians have ancestry that comes from China, where it's a grandparent, a great-grandmother, somebody who actually comes from China. So even though they look Chinese, they don't speak Chinese anymore. They are mostly speaking Spanish. In fact, when I walk in the big cities in Beijing or in Shanghai, people confuse me. People think that I am Chinese, and they start speaking to me in Chinese. And I was surprised why. And the fact is that China and Peru have probably similar ancestry, because the people in Latin America came from Asia. People from Asia, from China, Mongolia, and different regions in the continent actually travel either by sea to Latin America or going up north, going across the Bering Strait and coming down from North America and South America. So yes, we have, as I said, mentioned in the president's letter too, we have common ancestors there that actually dates thousands of years ago.
If you don't mind me asking, maybe this is too personal, but I have to ask, do you think this is the partial reason for you to make your decision to actually live in China and ask your kids to learn Chinese and the whole culture here?
Well, it's definitely interesting that you mentioned that, because people look at me and they say, you're Chinese. But in fact, probably the reason why I wanted my children to speak Chinese is a different one. China is obviously an emerging world power, and I think the capability to understand, to interact with people in their own language is very important. So that's the reason why I think it was important for my children to learn the language, and what better way to experience this in a full-time way.
Right, and Peru is definitely on my list, at the top of my list of traveling. I really want to visit Machu Picchu, indeed. And there is a very good program made by CMG, China Media Group, the mother company of CGTN as well, from the Great Wall to Machu Picchu. So how do you see the connections of the two ancient civilizations?
If you look at either country, obviously you will see that the most important attractions are for Peru, Machu Picchu, and obviously for China, the Great Wall. Why? Because those are amazing engineering works. In the case of Machu Picchu, the way it was built, it's something that people still cannot explain now. So in that case, it's still something very impressive. Now, when you talk about Machu Picchu, which is a place I visited a few years ago with my family, you will see that there are only around 1 million people visiting this attraction. This is a very important attraction, one of the 7 wonders of the world every year. So only 1 million people. And you need to compare that with major cities like, let's say, Paris or Barcelona, where you have 50 million people visiting every year. That gives you an idea of the gap. And also that gives you an idea of the opportunities. We not only need to invite people to come to Peru, we also need to build the infrastructure for them to enjoy the country. And that means highways, hotels, infrastructure, rails, and so on. That's something that Peru needs support. We obviously have enterprising world businessmen doing that, but again, we need more than that to be able to accommodate the influx of potential tourists like you.
Right, and we've been talking about trading goods a lot, but actually the potential in the service sector could be the next shining sector in China. Peru cooperation, right?
Yeah, well, I'm committed too. Mike Waters did a wonderful job on advertising Peru in a 3-minute program. Absolutely. I think, as I mentioned, I think there's a great potential for tourism taking place in the future. I think there got to be a lot of people just like you, very interested in go to that country and see what's happening there, and also see the culture and the history. Very significant, cultural, historic relics over there. And there's a very large market actually in China, right? I mean, we have so many people here, going. It's a long flight, I know. It's a long flight, but it's worth every minute.
It's worth it. So you've been there to Machu Picchu? No?
No, I've never been there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
let's make an appointment to go there together.
Sure.
Well, we'll continue our discussions a moment later. Now in Peru, anticipation is high across various social sectors, with hopes for enhanced development opportunities and also strengthened ties with China.
Como le decía, tenemos una
ties between China and Peru have a long history. China is our main trading partner. We continue providing policy support to give the EU industry more traction. There is no doubt that Chinese enterprises are industry leaders. We believe Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit will boost relations between both countries.
Our relationship with China is important. It can help us establish significant connections on economic and regional levels and promote our country's development. President Xi Jinping's visit can strengthen our economic ties as well as educational exchanges.
China has made great contributions to the development of Peru. China purchases products from Peru. China has provided Peru with many affordable products, such as smartphones and cars, which have improved the living standards of many people.
Peru is one of the first Latin American countries to establish diplomatic ties with China. It's also the first in the region to sign a comprehensive free trade agreement with China in 2009. Now, for more on bilateral trade cooperation, our colleague Zhong Shi talked to Luciano Paredes, Executive Director of the APEC CEO Summit.
How would you characterize the strategic importance of China-Peru cooperation under the APEC framework, and what opportunities do you see for enhanced collaboration?
So our relationship with China is pretty amazing, honestly. China has been our first trade partner for over a decade. We have been receiving important investments of Chinese companies in critical sectors, for example, energy, infrastructure, ports. Actually, this November, we will inaugurate the Chancay Port, brand new facility constructed by COSCO Shipping Group. It promises to change the connectivity landscape between the Asia and Latin America. We have a robust and historic alliance. Actually, Peru was one of the first Latin American economies to establish both diplomatic and economic ties with China. We have an FTA that is under revision. We are trying to modernize the terms of our agreements, and we are doing very good in that exercise bilaterally. The APEC region, it represents around 65% of the Peruvian exports annually. Half of that goes to China. So we really expect that this APEC summit will be positive to move forward and advance that bilateral relationship.
Well, China is Peru's largest trading partner, while Peru is China's fourth largest trading partner in Latin America. And CGTN spoke to Peru's Foreign Minister Elmer Sciala about the importance of China's investment in Peru.
We have a commercial a relationship of $30 billion, which may not very much mean to China, but for Peru is very important. China is our #1 trading partner. But it is not only that. China is a very big investor, not the biggest one, but a very big investor in Peru. And we have so many opportunities to invest in infrastructure. For example, infrastructure. We have what we call a gap, infrastructure gap of over $150 billion. And these are, of course, problematic for those communities that, for example, don't have electricity or don't have a decent road. I can say yes to that. But these are also big opportunities for companies interested in developing this infrastructure, which lacks that particular community.
Now let's get back to our studio guest, John. Well, we've been talking about the importance and the significance of President Xi's visit and also bilateral relations between the two countries as well. But what role do you think bilateral relations between China and Peru is playing in terms of regional integration, regional relations?
Well, I think the ambassador hit the nail right on the head. He was talking about a gap, infrastructure gap of $150 billion, and that are opportunities in building electric grid, electricity access network, and telecom networks, and all of these things are important for developing the country. And I think about the regional integration. I think China's companies' footprints in the Latin American market keep expanding. In neighboring countries as well. And with this mega port project opening up, I think there will be more connectivity between Peru and other countries where Chinese companies can keep expanding their footprints.
Do you see more Chancay ports in other countries, in other Latin American countries?
I don't know. I think one thing that impresses me is that the speed. I think Peru became a Belt and Road signatory country only in 2019, and 4 years later, four or 5 years later, we have this big project in operation, right? $3.5 billion being invested there. This kind of a speed it's just amazing to me. I think very few countries can actually do that. Building such a big port project within 4 or 5 years. I mean, in many countries, let me be honest with you, I mean, even do a feasibility study is going to take 2 or 3 years, right? Before any groundbreaking even happens. So I think this kind of a speed, the capability brought by the Chinese companies, that's a very good example for surrounding countries. So back to your question, is there going to be any other port projects happening again in the future? Maybe. I think there got to be other countries looking at this and see this is actually indeed working. It really brings jobs, really brings investment, and in other countries could be very much interested in it as well. I think in this regard, it's actually one thing that Washington is very concerned about is exactly about this issue. They see, for example, the Latin America as their backyard, and they feel like this with the commerce sort of flowing into the region, the sphere of influence from China is increasing greatly. So I think that's what Washington is coming from. It's really from a geopolitical prism, looking at what's happening in this region. But of course, we're mostly doing commercial activities there, right? We're actually not sending any troops or establish any military bases over there at all. I think it's mostly based on a commercial relationship, on economic development. And this is exactly what Latin America needs, I think, right? Latin America has been sort of left behind for so long, boiled by these political instabilities, military coups orchestrated by Washington. All of these things happened over the many years in the past in that region. I think now what we Chinese and Chinese companies are offering on the table is an entirely different breed of assistance and cooperation to the region. And I think this is what the people in Latin America are looking forward to.
And the cooperation outcomes like the Shanghai ports, also it's not exclusive to like China and Peru, but it's open to other countries who's willing to do business in a sound and safe way, right?
Yeah.
And still to follow up on that regional implication topic, Mr. Perez, what opportunities do you think projects like the Shanghai port, but not exclusively to Shanghai port, opportunities that can bring to the region as a whole?
If you think about commerce actually today between Latin America and Asia, that actually takes 40 days. So to bring something, maybe avocados or any other agricultural product from one place to another, it's going to take a long time. So that's something that needs to be focused on. And if you look at the port, that's going to actually change a lot, because now we expect to go these biggest freights in the world coming from Shanghai all the way to Shanghai to take 23 days, which is a significant improvement in this transportation. Now, what does that do for the region? A lot. Because right now, the ships to come all the way to Shanghai will need to actually make stops in Mexico's Manzanillo port and also the United States Long Beach port. And that adds time, adds costs. And that's something that needs to be faced. Now with the port, this easy way from Peru all the way to China, it's going to facilitate commerce not only coming from Peru, but also from other countries of the region. Remember, biggest ships in the world cannot go to Chile, cannot go to Colombia, cannot go to Ecuador. So if you're a Chilean company or you're a Colombian company and you want to make sure that your products arrive to Asia in record time, you will probably be facilitating trading first to Lima, first to Shanghai, and then from there changing ships and then sending your containers all the way to Asia. So that's going to create significant savings in time and also in costs. Every day that a ship is up in the seas, it's actually significant cost. 20% of those costs are going to be logistics, and that really needs to be faced.
Well, so thanks to Shanghai Port, I'm expecting more products from Latin America in my kitchen. All right, we'll continue our discussions later on. You're now watching our special coverage on President Xi's visit to Peru. We'll be right back.
This November, Lima, Peru.
The APEC CEO Summit, CGTN's team ready to bring you first-hand insights as innovation reshape the future of the Asia-Pacific and the Global South.
From the International Media Center, CGTN will bring you live coverage showcasing the majestic architecture and the rich cultural heritage of the region, illustrating the power of collaboration to drive economic growth.
China's role in APEC goes beyond words. collaborating with APEC member economies to foster deeper connections between their markets and people.
With APEC guiding the way, CGTN is tracking how economies are coming together around the shared goal of prosperity. Our team is in place, ensuring you get the latest updates as they happen.
In a spirit of mutual prosperity, APEC is driven by shared goals and innovative partnerships.
CGTN's team is working to deliver exclusive coverage of APEC 2024,
where tradition meets progress and new partnerships illuminate a future of endless possibilities.
You're now watching CGTN special coverage on President Xi Jinping's visit to Peru. Now, the CEO summit is seen as an opportunity for business and political leaders to exchange insights and seek collaboration opportunities on APEC. And our reporter Jim Spellman has more details.
The CEO summit is underway alongside the APEC meetings in Lima, Peru. This is an opportunity for business leaders and world leaders to spend time together and collaborate. Fernando Zavala is the CEO Summit chairman.
We will have business talking about energy transition, climate change, and also talking about technology. And the idea is to have academics, politics, and businessmen talking together and trying to make some agreement that what can we do together to grow more in the world economy.
The APEC economies account for about 60% of global GDP, so there are plenty of investment opportunities represented here. Peru's President Dina Boluarte delivered the opening keynote address with a message that Peru is open for business. Panel discussions, including one moderated by CGTN's Tian Wei, addressed challenges and opportunities presented by changing business landscapes and emerging technologies, including climate solutions and AI.
What we're hearing from companies is the fact that with all of the changes happening around, it is an opportunity today to think about how they can even reinvent their business and do things differently. So nobody wants to let go of this opportunity, even if it is challenging. Good things will happen after that.
Beyond the speeches and roundtables, the CEO Summit is an opportunity for business and political leaders to spend unscripted time together and create relationships they can build on in the coming months and years. Jim Spellman, CGTN, Lima, Peru.
Now let's take a closer look at APEC's role and its impact.
The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation is the premier forum for economic collaboration in the Asia-Pacific region, focusing on sustainable growth and shared prosperity. Established in 1989 in Canberra, Australia, with just 12 founding members, APEC now encompasses 21 global economies representing close to 3 billion people and around 60% of global GDP. After being established in 1989, the first APEC Economic Leaders Meeting was initiated in 1993 to provide strategic guidance for regional cooperation. In 2020, APEC adopted the Putrajaya Vision 2040, seeking to create an open and sustainable Asia-Pacific community based on trade and investment, innovation, and sustainable growth. Since APEC's inception, growth has soared in the region. Real GDP grew from $19 trillion in 1989 to $52.8 trillion in 2021. Over the same period, APEC also reduced average regional tariffs down to 5.3%, boosted regional trade, and lifted millions of people out of poverty. Since joining APEC in 1991, China has played a crucial role, notably leading the Beijing Roadmap for APEC regional trade agreements in 2014. Which help advance trade liberalization. China's Belt and Road Initiative also complements APEC's connectivity goals and enhances regional economic growth. In 2022, China's trade with APEC members exceeded $3.7 trillion, accounting for nearly 60% of China's total trade. China is the largest trading partner of 13 APEC economies. APEC economies also serve as key investment sources for China. Half of the nation's top 10 overseas direct investment sources and outbound FDI destinations are APEC members. China also supports APEC's sustainable development goals. As the world's largest renewable energy market, China assists developing countries in energy transformation and leads environmental negotiations to foster more eco-friendly trade in the region.
Now let's get more insight from our guests in this studio. So, gentlemen, the theme for this year's APEC gathering is Empower, Include, Grow. Professor Gong, what's your reading into this grand theme, especially when the world is facing more uncertainties, both in political and economic terms?
Well, I think the agenda is firmly grounded on the growth agenda, on the economic development agenda, and I think this is what the Latin American countries really need, and particularly I think that's what Peru needs. I think in a fast-changing world, in a world where the leading country in the world is getting more and more protectionist, getting more and more inward-looking. And we need, this continued globalization. I think, the integration of both sides of the Pacific has generated immense benefits for the countries around this region. I think, regardless of this voices coming from Washington, I think we're going to continue to foster this relationship between China and Latin American countries, and in this case, Peru in particular. This is extremely important, because our economy is getting more and more internationalized, in my view, globalized, in my view, and I think China is probably one of the few countries these days among the industrialized world who are still championing free trade. These days, Washington and many other countries in Europe are not talking about free trade anymore. They're talking about fair trade, secure trade, right? I think being the largest trading nation in the world, and also being a country that is seeing a lot of outbound investment from corporate China in many developing countries, and in Latin America in particular. I think this message still holds very well with a lot of countries. We need development, and we need this kind of economic interactions.
Yeah, tell us more from the Peruvian perspective about the theme, Mr. Perez.
Well, the theme, as you said, empower, include, and grow, means that we need to expand this growth. It doesn't have to be just growth per growth's sake, but also sustainable growth. Mm-hmm. And by that we mean that we need to also respect the environment, incorporate vulnerable populations, and make sure that this growth also incorporates small enterprises. So I think that the theme is very interesting. As you know, every APEC edition incorporates a theme that is suggested by the host country. Mm-hmm. Peru's suggestion actually comes because Peru is actually going through a very important transition to incorporate these populations in Peru. As I said before, 28% of the population is still in poverty, meaning that the benefits of the growth that we see around the world is not shared completely in the country yet. So the goal, hopefully having now APEC hosted in Peru, means that now Peru, as the president said, is open for business, meaning that we are now inviting investors around the world to be part of this development, where you see a portfolio of $150 billion projects out there for Peru.
But Peru is a leading APEC member in Latin America. How would you describe Peru's bridging role in APEC in terms of the region and the Latin American countries?
Well, probably the most important indicator is the fact that this is the third time Peru is hosting the summit, 2008, 2016, and now 2024. Hopefully it's not the last time. So that means that Peru is actually helping the region, the bloc, to actually increase this cooperation between these nations. If you look at the APEC effort, from the moment that the bloc was created, the tariffs on average have decreased from 17% in 1989 to all the way to 5.3% in 2021. That's real growth. That's real opportunities for companies around different member economies.
And many member economies of APEC are also members of the Global South. China is, for one, and of course, Peru as well. So in this context, Professor, what do you make of the expression of the voices from the Global South in multilateral platforms like this?
Yeah, well, we have a very important BRICS member country, Brazil, located in that region. And I totally agree with you that the Global South, encompassing, of course, Latin America, practically every country in Latin America is part of the Global South. I mean, they are physically in the South, I guess. I think the point is that it's more than just about economic development. Our countries, in the Global South need to have a larger voice, in terms of global governance. I think for too long, these countries' interests haven't been really respected and taken care of by the international community. I think this is about time that we should jointly try to have a better say, a larger say in international and global governance. And I think BRICS is actually a very important platform. I'm not sure whether at the APEC we will talk about these issues, but certainly I think this is something that is going to be resonated a lot by a lot of member countries.
President Xi actually described the issue in terms of in a cooperation, the regional cooperation within APEC. He said that as national leaders, they should think about what kind of APEC cooperation would be in the next 30 years. Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I think probably what President Xi is talking about is a vision that goes maybe beyond just economic cooperation. Probably we'll be touching upon the issues we'll be just discussing. In addition to regional economic integration, we probably will also be looking at cooperation in other aspects at political level. Being a complement to the BRICS platform in voicing a lot more issues and things of our concern during the international intercourse.
And gentlemen, we'll be getting back to you on this. Now let's get more updates. China has continuously pushed for stronger ties with countries in Latin America and Caribbean, also called LAC, LAC. That means in its second policy paper on the region issued in November 2016, China put forward many initiatives and proposals, drawing a blueprint for future cooperation.
The policy paper describes China's policy direction on the LAC region, which focuses on 5 areas, namely sincerity and mutual trust in politics, win-win cooperation in trade and the economy, mutual learning in culture, close coordination in international affairs, and a mutual reinforcement between China's cooperation with LAC countries and the region as a whole. The policy paper puts forward 39 proposals to enhance China-LAC cooperation in political, economic, social, cultural, and people-to-people exchanges. The proposals also cover international collaboration, peace, security, and judicial affairs, and in collective cooperation. China also proposed the new initiatives, covering exchanges in governance and development, cooperation in industrial investment and capacity, and the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The policy paper also states China's commitment to strengthening cooperation with LAC countries in international economic and financial organizations and mechanisms, such as the G20, APEC, IMF, and the World Bank. It also stresses multilateral trade negotiation processes with the WTO as the core, a balanced, win-win, and inclusive multilateral trading system, and economic integration in the Asia-Pacific region. The policy paper highlights openness and inclusiveness, stressing China-LAC partnership does not exclude or target any third party. China also expressed the willingness to develop cooperation with international organizations and countries beyond the LAC region, provided that it is beneficial and agreed upon by LAC countries. Meanwhile, the policy paper also raised the highly targeted proposals on social, trade, investment, and industrial cooperation. The proposals include exchanges in social governance, cooperation on climate change, dialogues on poverty alleviation, cooperation in disease control, and enhancing medical personnel and facilities. On trade, more efforts will be made to tap into the potential of specialty products and establish trade facilitation arrangements to handle disputes. On investment, China encourages its enterprises to invest in LAC countries and promote production capacity cooperation. In terms of industries, China aims to deepen cooperation in energy and resources. China also encourages the public-private partnership model and the joint construction of industrial parks to promote infrastructural interconnectivity.
Well, with Latin America in the spotlight as the APEC and G20 gatherings approach, CGTN presents a special series on young Latin Americans making waves in China. And today, our Yang Jinghao brings us the story of a Brazilian designer who is tapping business opportunities from China's dynamic manufacturing landscape.
Rodrigo, a designer from Brazil, is a fitness enthusiast, using equipment he designs himself, a passion that began in childhood.
I always create my own toys, and in my home I have a small box where I put a lot of different products where I can assemble, disassemble, do a lot of things.
Rodrigo first visited China in 2009, which he calls an eye-opening experience. He then began collaborating with the Chinese suppliers. 7 years later, he decided to relocate to Ningbo in East China's Zhejiang province.
For me as a designer, inventor, being in China is the best place where I can put all my ideas and transform into reality in a fast way and with the right cost.
Here, Rodrigo focuses on multifunctional fitness equipment and kitchenware, like innovative barbecue tools.
We need 2 kinds of knife, one short knife and a long knife. The long knife we used to use in the fire, so we can cut and be safe, right? So we developed this new that we can use like a small knife, or we can extend and use as a longer knife. So this is very convenient.
Rodrigo's business has grown steadily over the past few years. While Brazil remains its largest market, his products are also reaching customers across Latin America, the US, and Europe. Rodrigo credits much of his success to the supportive business environment.
The government helped us to do business here. Like, for instance, this place that we have here, we are in an innovation zone, design zone. So the government pay part of our rent. So we have a discount here.
The 41-year-old has also brought his family over to the city.
So it's much better we stay as a family together. So this is one point. Another point is that because China is very safe. 3.5 years ago, we have our new baby. I like to say she's made in China, but with Brazilian design.
With teams both in Brazil and China, Rodrigo says he has a lot more ideas to bring to life and a bigger business vision.
My plan is keeping doing what we are doing because we already plant a lot of seeds. And now those seeds is growing and is like flourishing. And now we are in a good way. So step by step, we are getting stronger, faster, and better.
Yang Jinghao, CGTN, Ningbo, Zhejiang Province.
Well, just to follow on the topic in that report we just watched, Mr. Perez, actually this year marks the 10th anniversary of Chinese President Xi Jinping's proposal on building a China, Latin America and the Caribbean community of a shared future. You're from Peru. Now you've been living in China for quite some years now. What's your understanding of this shared future?
Well, if you look at our history, it's actually also a shared past. So it's only natural to think that we're going to a shared future. When you look at the world is actually one big unity. There are no compartments in the world. So a technology that is developed in one part of the world, eventually we have an impact also in all other parts of the world. So we all need to be together to face the challenges of the future. Climate change, for example, is a very important aspect today for all nations to cooperate. If you think about technology deployment as well, obviously there are going to be some countries in the world that will develop these new technologies, but that doesn't mean that not all other countries will be able to leverage those technologies as well. There will be an option, and that's something that countries need to think, because at the end of the day, technology is evolving. It's in a march that is unstoppable, and we all need to take advantage of that, to leverage that. And for that, obviously, having the common of shared future means that we all can share the benefit of these technologies and not only the costs.
We'll leave the world being a unity for later discussion. Before that, Mr. Gong, we've seen preferential policies given to businessmen like Rodrigo in that story. Do you think that within the APEC framework, there are enough preferential policies given to each other?
Well, I think definitely, these kind of policies make definitely benefit a lot of cross-border labor movement. I think we probably have seen a lot of Chinese businessmen going to Latin American countries, but we actually also would like to see more people like this gentleman we've just been seeing coming from Brazil, coming from other countries in the region, to come to China to contribute to what they very good at, and contribute to China's economy as well. Actually, I'm seeing more and more people. I mean, you are one of them, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. So these are good examples. I think. I think it's not just a one-way street. It should be a two-way street. And I think this kind of a diversity also enriches our own culture, enriches our own life. Certainly, I benefit a lot from interaction with our international students, international faculty members. So these are the kind of things that we should really encourage and cherish.
And about the world should be a unity, as what Mr. Perez put it. Unfortunately, the world is now in chaos. It's full of uncertainties. Do you think APEC is establishing a community resilient enough to fight back those uncertainties?
Well, I think it's one of the organizations that I hope will continue, even against the backdrop of immense uncertainties you're just talking about. I think there are countries that are seeing APEC as being increasingly irrelevant. That's for sure. But I think other members of the country, other members of this forum, will continue to stick to this theme, to stick to this organization, and I think APEC will move on, like it or not. Quoting some the phrase that President Trump likes to use. So I think things are going to move on, and I think the cooperation between other countries in this club will flourish in the future.
And actually, APEC identifies itself as a platform for international economic cooperation. And Mr. Perez, earlier we talked about this vision for a shared future. But another harsh reality is that, as Dongling just mentioned, the world faces so many challenges. So talking about economic development, actually many developing countries and the global south as a whole has been facing challenges like the difficulties in green transition and also in dealing with climate change. And what the global south has seen is empty promises from industrialized countries, big promises, little financing in reality. How do you think the global south could use multilateral platforms like the APEC and many other platforms like Professor just mentioned to address their concerns actually to make their actions to dealing with challenges?
Well, challenges will always be present. When you think about the global economy, for example, just looking at the APEC member economies, growth for 2023 was 3.4% GDP growth. If you look at this year, it is expected to actually be a bit lower, 3.3%. And if you look at the following year, 2025, it's expected to even be lower, 3.1%. So growth is what we need. Some of the most dynamic economies in the world today are outside APEC. So we need to start from home. We need to make sure that we facilitate trade, we facilitate initiatives to cooperate in the countries, in the member economies, because that's what is going to lead us to a new stage of growth. That's what we need. That's our millions, billions, almost 3 billion people in the community actually need to make sure that they have a quality of life that is going to be dignified in the future.
So being specific on green transition, I know Peru has been making big strides in going green in its whole energy structure, and China has made very ambitious promises regarding going green and like carbon peaking and carbon neutrality. What do you make of the potential in the two countries' cooperation in this particular regard and its implication for other countries, other developing countries who are very keen to go green?
Well, obviously, China has a lot of experience in terms of creating a green infrastructure. If you look at the main sources of energy in Peru, we need to take advantage of that. Solar, wind, hydroelectric energy, those are going to be the key factors if you want to make sure that the economy is going to grow in a sustainable fashion. And we see China as an example. Obviously, there are pretty amazing infrastructure projects in China that we can actually look at also to incorporate into Peruvian's infrastructure. That's what we need. That's going to actually give hope to most of the population in the country.
So, Mr. Gong, do you think Chinese technology on eco-friendly eco protection such as photovoltaic, would help in that regard?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have developed great technologies. We have great companies in that space. I think for many countries in the global south, they are asking this question: what is the fund promised by the West, right? But I'm talking about that $10 billion a year. You know, that's an issue going to be discussed at COP29 coming meeting. And I'm very skeptical the money is going to come. Actually, you know, obviously a lot of money is going to the wars happening right now, not going to fighting the climate change, but fighting against each other. So this is actually very unfortunate in my view. But nevertheless,
now let's go to Peru and see what's happening at the latest of President Xi Jinping's state visit to the country. And now you're watching live footage from Lima. And this is the government palace. The two presidents are about to witness a signing ceremony of multiple cooperation documents between the two countries. And earlier, the two presidents were having an official meeting discussing a wide range of topics of common concern.
Es grato anunciar que en la fecha la República del Perú y la República Popular China han adoptado la declaración conjunta sobre la profundización de la asociación estratégica integral. Dicho texto se hará público al concluir la presente visita de Estado.
Of the free trade agreement and also the comprehensive strategic partnership. So after the president came to Peru, for our two sides, we will continue to deepen the cooperation and the comprehensive strategic partnership. We will once again confirm that China will continue to advance the Belt and Road Initiative and the Maritime Silk Road. China and Peru will jointly sign the above-mentioned documents. Thank you for the ministers. Now we would like to invite the Minister of Tourism from Peru and also the Minister from Commerce of PRC to sign the document on improving the free trade agreement between Peru and China.
A continuación, el señor ministro de Relaciones Exteriores del Perú intercambiará con el señor ministro de Comercio de China 3 instrumentos.
The foreign minister and also the Commerce Minister of Peru will also exchange 3 documents to further enhance the green development.
El segundo es el acta de entrega del aviso de la donación para el proyecto Asistencia de Urgencia a la Policía Nacional del Perú para el fortalecimiento de la seguridad de la reunión de líderes económicos APEC 2024. El tercero de estos memorándums es el acta de entrega de la donación de bienes muebles otorgada por el gobierno de la República Popular China referido al proyecto Asistencia de Urgencia al gobierno peruano sobre el fortalecimiento de equipamiento para organización de reuniones de APEC 2024 a favor del gobierno de la República.
We continue to exchange documents, and China will provide the subsidies to Peru to further enhance the building of the security team in Peru to ensure the successful host of the APEC meeting.
Next, let's invite de la República del Perú y la Comisión Nacional de Desarrollo y Reforma de la República Popular China en cooperación en la realización de un estudio preliminar sobre
Vice Minister of Diplomacy from Peru and the Minister of NDRC from China to sign an agreement on promotion of Chinese enterprises' investment on Peru and strengthen commercial cooperation between the two countries. Next, let's invite ministers to exchange their signed documents on strengthening investment in mining field.
A continuación, el señor ministro de Relaciones Exteriores del Perú intercambiará con el presidente de la Agencia Internacional de Cooperación y Desarrollo de la República Popular China dos instrumentos suscritos.
The ministers to exchange the documents.
El convenio de cooperación económica y técnica entre el gobierno de la República del Perú y el gobierno de la República Popular China.
The agreement on promoting technological exchanges
y la Agencia Internacional de Cooperación de Desarrollo de la República Popular China acerca del impulso a la cooperación para el desarrollo. Enseguida, el señor ministro de Transportes y Comunicaciones del Perú,
and on strengthening technological transfer.
Intercambiará con el señor ministro de Transportes de China, señor Liu Wei, dos instrumentos suscritos. El memorando de entendimiento entre el Ministerio de Transportes y Comunicaciones del Perú y el Ministerio de Transportes de la República
The ministers of transportation will exchange the document on strengthening cooperation in transportation and the maritime traveling.
Ahora, el señor ministro de Desarrollo Agrario y Riego del Perú, Ángel Manero, intercambiará.
The two countries will continue to strengthen cooperation in transportation. Next, Minister of Risk Management from Peru and China's ambassador to Peru will exchange the agreement on strengthening agricultural export between China and Peru. The two countries will continue to promote the export of Brazilian nuts to Peru ports in order to further ensure that all the exported goods to China are up to the standard of the China's customs. Next, Minister of Culture from Peru will exchange agreement with CMG leader Minister Sheng Haixiong.
El secretario general del Despacho Presidencial del Perú, señor Enrique Vilches, intercambiará con el presidente del CMG, señor Chen Haixiong, el memorándum de acuerdo entre el Despacho Presidencial y el Grupo de Medios de China.
Will continue to sign the documents on the document on strengthening the media cooperation.
Adicionalmente, la República del Perú y la República Popular China han suscrito en el marco de esta visita de Estado
China and Peru
will sign the following documents during the visit, covering the area of the education. This document is about to promote the exchange in the sector of education between China and Peru. The Healthcare Department of Peru will work with the China Market Regulation Department, will sign the documents on exchange the MOU on the Agriculture Cooperation, and also the Communication Department of Peru will also work with the MIT of China. We also sign the MOU on strengthening the cooperation in communication, and also the MOU on the strengthening the cultural exchange between the two countries. And also the Housing Department of Peru will also sign memorandum of understanding with the counterpart in China.
Memorándum de entendimiento entre la Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos del Perú y la Universidad Abierta de Chongqing,
and also the University of Peru.
International Corporation Ltd.
We also signed MOU with Chongqing University in China, and this document is on strengthening the cooperation in communication and telecommunication. Peru will continue to work with the Chang'an Automobile. Will also sign an MOU on further its cooperation. And also we will continue to sign the MOU on strengthening the cooperation with two cities, the Shanghai city and also the one of the city in China. Will also continue our cooperation. For both of us will release that on November the 15th, 2024, we will also declare a joint declaration. And this will emphasize that China will acknowledge the unified market in Peru and also to promote the trade facilitation. For the two sides will continue to sign a number of documents.
The live coverage from Lima's government palace, where President Xi Jinping and President Boluarte of Peru are witnessing the signing of a series of bilateral agreements and MOUs.
And many cooperation documents have been signed so far. They're about an upgrade to the free trade agreement between the two countries, cooperation on the Belt and Road Initiative.
Next, we will have the inauguration ceremony for the Shanghai port.
Damos inicio a la ceremonia con las palabras del ministro de Transporte de China, señor Liu Wei.
So now we would like to invite Mr. Liu Wei from the Ministry of Transport to deliver a speech. Your Excellency, President Xi Jinping,
Señora Presidenta Dina Boluarte, el Ministerio de Transporte de la República Popular China ha implementado con firmeza la importante instrucción del presidente Xi Jinping los importantes consensos alcanzados por los jefes de Estado de ambos países en junio pasado. Bajo la orientación del plan de acción conjunta entre ambos gobiernos, nuestro ministerio ha convertido el aeropuerto de Shanghái en un proyecto emblemático de la cooperación binacional en la infraestructura de transporte. Con nuestros esfuerzos compartidos hemos cumplido esta obra según la fecha prevista.
So both sides will work together. Hopefully during the meeting we can complete our project from Shanghai to Shanghai. With the completion of this project, we hope to enhance the connectivity between the two sides. Now let's give the floor to the Minister of Transportation from Peru.
Señora Dina Boluarte, Presidenta de la República del Perú. Señor Xi Jinping,
Distinguished
Presidente de la República
Madam
Popular de China.
President
Distinguidas autoridades,
Boluarte
invitados
and
especiales,
President Xi from China,
especiales ciudadanos
distinguished
chancay.
guests,
Hoy es un día histórico para el
ladies
Perú
and gentlemen,
y para las
especially
relaciones
people
entre
from
nuestras dos
Shanghai.
naciones.
Today will be a historical moment for all of us, especially for the people from the two sides. With the opening of the Shanghai port, it marks the new beginning for the port construction of Peru, and we will be actively participating more in the global trade. As the developer of the port, with the support of the Chinese government, we've put a lot of efforts into building the port so as to use it as an important harbor in the Pacific Ocean, and will continue to improve our capacity as international harbor and processing cargo. It will be creating more than 8,000 new jobs. With the opening of the port, the economic power and the regional strategic position will be further enhanced, and this port will further strengthen our trade with Asia and bilateral cargo transportation between Peru and Asia, and especially with China. Hereby, I'd like to welcome all of the Chinese enterprises to shoulder your social responsibility, and a lot of the enterprises has done a marvelous job and has launched many meaningful projects. So we will stick to the principles of environmental friendly and resource conservation. For all of you who have contributed to the building and construction of the port, I thank you for your efforts. This is not only an infrastructure project, but also a bridge that connects the hearts together and to build our future together. It's a witness for our cooperation.
Veremos el tráiler del megapuerto de Shanghái.
下面请观看开港仪式宣传视频。
Now let's see the video for the opening of the port.
What I was seeing is the live picture from Lima, the capital city of Peru, where President Xi Jinping is making a state visit to. And via video, President Xi Jinping and the President of Peru are jointly witnessing the inauguration of the highly anticipated Shanghai port.
Actually, this is a promotional video of the port itself, on the construction from planning to construction, now to completion and ready for operation. As we just heard from the Transport Minister of Peru, calling this a historic day, not only for Peru but also for China, a new link, a crucial trade link between Peru, Latin America, to Asia, including China, and also for a local community there. This is also a very important opportunity. The Peruvian minister also said more than 8,000 job opportunities have been created by this mega project.
So it's a port, and it's more than a port. It's a start of the entirely new route between the two countries and between China and Latin America as well. It's a very big, very significant milestone in bilateral relations. And the port itself is
yes,
also
this
a
is
key milestone
Shanghai,
in
right?
Latin America's BRI projects as well.
This is showcasing Shanghai in China, a very catchy term from Shanghai to Shanghai. Underscore, yes. Yes, and underscoring the how crucial this link is from point to point, from continent to continent.
Right. So through that port, we're expecting more Latin American, not only Peruvian products, but whole Latin American products to come to China in a shorter time, within a shorter distance, which makes the bilateral trade more efficient. And this port, the Shanghai port, is actually the first smart port in South America. That's something worth noticing. It is equipped with state-of-the-art automation and digital technologies, including remote-operated cranes, as we just saw, and electric smart trucks, and also 5G communication systems.
Mr. President, Madam President, the Shanghai port has been completed and is ready to open. Please give your orders.
Señor Presidente, la construcción del puerto de Shanghái se ha culminado en su
President
totalidad.
Dina Boluarte and President Xi Jinping, Shanghai port has been completed
Denos sus instrucciones.
and is ready to operate.
开港。
Now, Shanghai Port is officially in operation, announced by the presidents of China and Peru. This is live footage from Shanghai Port in operation now. This marks another crucial starting point for Latin America to get better connectivity to Asia.
It's a very typical example of the infrastructure built under the framework of the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. And this port was built with an investment over $1.3 billion from China's COSCO shipping company, marking a new height in China-Peru cooperation.
And talking about better connectivity, we've got some estimation here. Shanghai Port will reduce maritime transportation time between Peru and the Asia-Pacific region, including China, from 35 to 23 days.
Now let's welcome the President of People's Republic of China, President Xi Jinping, to deliver a speech.
Estimada señora Presidenta Dina Boluarte, señoras y señores,
Your
amigos todos,
Excellency President Dina Boluarte,
es sumamente
ladies and
complacido
gentlemen,
asistir junto con la señora Presidenta Dina
it is
Boluarte
my great
a esta
pleasure
ceremonia de
to
inauguración
join
del puerto de
President
Shanghái.
Boluarte to join the inauguration ceremony of the Shanghai port. First, I'd like to congratulate on the successful opening of the Shanghai port. And also, I would like to express my gratitude to the practitioners who has been worked to complete the Shanghai port. Just now, from the video, we can see in a couple of days a new modern port has been established, and also we are seeing the ultra-large container vessels, which is very encouraging to all of us. For the port, it is a very important pillar for economic growth. For the Shanghai port, it is a deep water port, and also it is the first smart port in South America. After the completion, we can cut the transit time by at least 10 days, and this will save over 20% of the cost, and this will also bring more tangible benefits to Peru and also create more jobs in Peru. After the completion of the Shanghai port, this will become an important hub to connect Asia, Latin American, and also the Caribbean countries. Hundreds of years ago, the Chinese ancestors, with their diligent work, they came to Caribbean regions. So for the ancestors of Chinese people, they have established the maritime Silk Road, and also about 500 years ago, for the ancestors of Peru, they also face with a lot of challenges and go through mountains, and also they established the Inca ancient town. Right now, for the Shanghai port, it's become a new ancient route in the new era. From Shanghai to Shanghai, what we are doing right now is to fulfill our achievements under the Belt and Road Initiative. And also we are doing our best to build a new land-sea corridor connecting the Asia-Pacific regions. In the Shanghai port, we will continue to improve the service level of the port and also to improve our service level and try our best to improve the connectivity between China and South America. And we will continue to take active actions to connect different facilities in Shanghai port to make sure that we follow the principle of joint consultation, contribution with shared benefits, and to promote the economy along the Shanghai port. Make sure that the Shanghai port can bring tangible benefits to the Latin American countries and its peoples. With the completion of the Shanghai port, we would like to reach mutually beneficial results and bring more benefits to people in different parts of the world. Let's work together and set sail from the Shanghai port and navigate our friendship between China and Peru and march towards a brighter future. Thank you.
You're watching live footage from the government palace in Lima. The two countries' presidents are witnessing the
now,
opening
let's give the
of
floor
Shanghai port.
to President Boluarte from Peru.
Señor Presidente de la República Popular China,
Distinguished President Xi Jinping from the People's Republic of China,
Señor Presidente del Poder Judicial,
Distinguished Chairman of the Peru Parliament, and from the highest court, distinguished Chinese delegates and representatives from both China and Peru's business and military. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you for participating in the inauguration of Chancay Port. It's our privilege to jointly declare the opening of Chancay Port with President Xi Jinping. It will bring major benefit to Peru and Peruvian people. We will continue to consolidate Peru's position as the hub for the technology, logistics, and industry in South America and Latin America, and will continue to improve our strategic position in Asia-Pacific region. Chancay Port, together with the other important transportational juncture and economic zone, will be working together to further promote the trade on land and maritime. We will attract more investment and create more investment opportunities so as to further develop our economy. We used to see Chancay Port as an important strategic goal, and today we can happily declare that we've already reached that goal. The inauguration of Chancay Port is based on the bilateral friendship and joint effort of China and Peru. China has always been an important supporter for Peruvian economic development. In the past years, we have continued to consolidate our comprehensive strategic partnership. We've made cooperation in innovation, trade, and economy. And China is now the biggest trading partner with Peru. And it is the destination of trade for 38% of all the goods. And the total trade volume exceeds 39 billion USD, and mainly on mining industry. The Chancay Port's initial investment reaches 13 billion USD. It is without a doubt a super port project and is of great significance. It not only will directly promote the trade and export of all kinds of commodities, it will further improve our level of competency, level of employment, and economic development. So for Peru, Chancay Port will help us to usher in a new era of economic development and strengthen our cooperation with China in trade and all the other aspects. So we firmly believe that in the future, we will continue to deepen our comprehensive strategic partnership and the friendship between the two sides. Through the Chancay Port project, we will be working further with our Latino American friends to help you to connect yourself with the Asian market and Asia Pacific markets, because will help us to connect to the world. So we will be opening up our arms to ensure the legal security and security of our investment environment. I believe that there will be the new beginning for the Inca path. It will lead us to the big market of Asia Pacific and vice versa. We will strengthen our cooperation with Asian countries. It affect the deep friendship between China and Peru. So with such confidence, I want to reinforce and reinstate the importance of Chancay Port. Long live the friendship between China and Peru.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the end of the inauguration ceremony of the Chancay Port.
That was the inauguration ceremony for Chancay Port in Peru. President of China and Peru witnessed the inauguration ceremony and officially announced the operation of the port.
And before that, both leaders witnessed the signing of a series of agreements and MOUs, which is a very important result of this state visit by President Xi to Peru.
Right.
Well, talking about the Chancay Port, we mentioned probably 100 times of Chancay Port today, but it is really important. As what President Xi said just now, it is the port will help build an Inca Trail of the new era.
Right.
John, how should we understand the Inca Trail of the new era?
I think I want to repeat what the Transportation Minister of Peru said about this project in his speech. He said it's not just a facility that connects Shanghai and Chancay. He said it's a bridge that connects hearts together. It's a bridge that connects future together. I think this statement really underlines the significance of this facility well beyond just providing a transportation connectivity. It sets the stage for the future, a closer world between China and Latin America, a closer world between China and Peru. And I think this is really, really significant. I think he hits the nail right on the head. You know, it's such a great statement. It really warms my heart by saying so. You know, he said this thing, right? So, you know, this is something that, you know, very, very important. It opens an entirely new chapter, not just from a commercial perspective, from economic development perspective, but also from you know, the civilizational perspective, the connection of people, connection of cultures, and connection of a future together. I think this is really what this project is all about.
It's not only an infrastructure of cement or any smart technology. It's about the connection of the human hearts between the two countries.
Exactly.
As a Peruvian, how do you see the opening of this very important port?
Well, it's a very significant day for the country. If you look at the Chancay Port from today, ships that can carry 18,000 containers will be able to dock in Chancay at this moment. That's incredible because there are only probably 20 ports around the world that are able to do so. And even less containers, 24,000 container ships, which is the scale of what is planned in the next stages for the project. So this is not the end of Chancay Port. This is actually the beginning of the road. This port is going to be extended. There's a proposal to invest more billions of dollars in this infrastructure, meaning that the opportunities are going to be bigger because there are not many ports like that, and even less so in South America.
Now, talking about connecting hearts and minds as well, going back to this term, from Chancay to Shanghai. What a coincidence. Professor, you're from Shanghai, and Mr. Perez, you're from Peru.
From Peru.
Yeah,
Lima.
talking about connecting hearts and minds and bringing different ideas together across the Pacific, right? So, still going back to this term, we know Shanghai is the world's largest port in goods turnover, and it's been going on for many consecutive years. And talking about the potential of Chancay Port in the future, as you just mentioned, less than 20 ports in the world can have that capacity to accommodate large freight ships. So do you think this term itself is also a vote of confidence in the future of Chancay Port, especially when we heard from Peruvian President saying that actually this is the first, President Xi Jinping also said this is the first smart port in South America as well.
Right.
Well, I am a keynote speaker. I usually speak about technology. And when you think about this port, it's all about technology because
it
this
excites
is
you, right?
automated. It's automated.
And
so
coincidentally, the fourth phase of Shanghai Port is totally unmanned. It's totally by, operated by drones and remote controls.
That's the beauty of the port. That's something that you won't find in many ports out there, where you still have a lot of people who actually are involved. And obviously that's actually leading to delays in shipping and containers. So obviously when you think about this port, technology is playing a very important role, and it's allowing this port to automate, to operate 24/7 in an amazing fashion, facilitating commerce. Because at the end of the day, every time that a ship is going to stay in the port, it's actually costing money. And that's at the end paid by the consumers.
John, how do you see, before the inauguration of Shanghai Port, a series of agreements, bilateral agreements and MOUs were signed as well, witnessed by both presidents. How do you see those, the signing of those agreements? Do you think they open new avenues for bilateral cooperation?
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. I counted about at least 12 agreements where the ministers exchanged documents and a couple of other things that they just announced, but actually they didn't go through these exchanges of documents. I think it's noticeable to see that one agreement is a CMG agreement, right?
A CMG agreement.
Yeah, Mr. Shen Haixiong, the head of CMG actually signed this agreement and also exchanged documents with his counterpart. It's about media cooperation. I think if you look at this list of agreements, I think a lot of them are regarding governmental minister level agreements in a range of areas, but also involves private enterprises, corporate companies as well. For example, I think I heard it mentions that China Automobile is signing an agreement with its counterpart in Peru. I mean, this is actually more significant to me than these couple of governmental agreements. That means that China Automobile is probably making investment over there, right? So I think this is actually a very significant development. It's precisely these kind of things that will drive a closer cooperation between the two sides, and I think reflects the spirit of the Belt and Road Initiative, right? I mean, it's building infrastructures followed up with these types of agreements, cooperations, investments, and this is how both countries can thrive in that regard.
I think it's fair to say that this is a very fruitful state visit by President Xi to Peru, and he's going to attend the APEC leaders informal meeting later on, and he's going to Brazil to attend G20 summit. So, Mr. Perez, how do you see this occasion when APEC meets G20 in Latin America?
Well, I think it's a very important moment for Latin America too, because now the region as a whole, it's going to be in the eyes of the world, and that's what the region needs. Latin America has been known for many, many years as a place where you can find raw materials, whether it's going to be mining, agricultural products, fishing, and so on. That needs to change at some moment. Why? Because at the same way that we actually export these type of products, we can also work on industrialize our economies. And that means that we are not only going to export avocados, for example, but products already using these avocados. We not only need to export lithium, we can also export batteries. So companies around the world that actually are using these resources can actually take advantage of this new infrastructure, because they can also establish themselves operations in Peru, in our Latin American countries, and then use the port to export these to all markets around the world.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Edgar Perez from Peru and Professor Zhang Gong there. Thank you very much for your insights. Now, our coverage continues. Peruvian media outlets El Peruano published a signed article by Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday. Earlier, my colleague Mike Water spoke to Felix Paz, General Manager of newspaper at El Peruano, who shared his takeaways from the article and his insight on China-Peru relations.
First of all, thank you so much for visiting with us. As I read this letter, it's such a warm letter, and it's published in your newspaper, China-Peru Friendship Setting Sail Toward an Even Brighter Future. When you read this letter, what were your takeaways?
The President Xi emphasizes the friendship between two nations that have been cradles of civilization, like China and Peru, nations with over 5,000 years of history.
And you have journalists covering this. Obviously, the launch, the inauguration of the megaport, a very big feature of his visit. Can you talk to me about the level of excitement, pride in Peru about this relationship and the megaport?
Bueno, la carta pone en relieve la amistad de Perú y China.
The letter highlights the friendship between Peru and China, and today, in this article by President Xi, it's emphasized that Chancay is going to elevate the Inca Road of the new era, a vision of unity for Latin America through the port of Shanghai.
De América Latina a través del puerto de Chancay.
Let me just read a little bit, and I want to get your thoughts on this. He says, this bond of friendship and affection is a legacy that shines brightly across the ages through our respective histories. Many told me that Chinese and Peruvian people would feel an instant warmth upon their first encounters, would have a deja vu type experiencing when appreciating each other's ancient artifacts.
Justamente en la carta, el presidente...
Precisely in the letter, President Xi makes historical references from both China and Peru, very ancient historical references. Therefore, the relationship between Peru and China isn't just from the last 53 years. It's a much older relationship that dates back to the beginnings of civilization.
Desde los inicios de la civilización.
Again, quoting from the letter, for over 50 years, our bilateral relations have been progressing steadily, especially since the elevation of our relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership in 2013. Our ties have grown stronger and our results-oriented cooperation have been fruitful, bringing tangible benefits to our peoples. Can you talk about this relationship and how it's grown, especially since what we've seen with the comprehensive strategic partnership in 2013?
Como le decía, la relación de Perú y China
the relationship between Peru and China, officially with the People's Republic of China, began 53 years ago. In the 1970s, Peru was one of the first countries to establish diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China. But even before that, 100 years earlier, Chinese immigrants arrived in Peru, bringing with them their culture and cuisine, which have been incorporated into Peruvian society. That's why I said that the relationship between Peru and China goes far beyond these 53 years of diplomatic relations. It's a people-to-people connection. In fact, President Xi, in the first part of his article, uses the very Peruvian phrase paisano when talking about the relationship between Peru and China.
I've spoken to a couple of people since I've been here this week, and they've talked about the megaport not just in terms of Peru, but the entire region and how the entire region will benefit. Can you give me a sense of what the megaport is going to mean for neighboring countries as well?
Sin duda, el puerto de Chancay, la obra y la cercanía va a marcar un cambio.
Undoubtedly, the Chancay port, its construction and proximity will mark a geopolitical change in Latin America and in commercial relations. The arrival of products to Latin America and to Peru will reduce transit times by 10 to 12 hours. And in terms of economics and business, those 10 to 12 hours are vital. It will allow the entry of new technology. One of our media outlets, Andina Agency, mentioned that the first products to arrive will be electric vehicles, which undoubtedly change Peru's automotive sector towards environmental improvement. Furthermore, Peru is centrally located in the Americas, so we'll soon connect with the Brazilian, Argentinian, Chilean, and other Andean markets. So without a doubt, there will be a greater proximity between China, Peru, Latin America, and vice versa.
Perú y América Latina con China.
And thousands of diplomats, business leaders, and also journalists are converging in Lima for the APEC meetings, and many are visiting the Peruvian capital for the first time, including our colleague Jim Spellman. They asked me how to be a tourist for a day and explore the city.
To get an idea of what to do and see in Lima, I called my old friend and former colleague Julio Aliaga, who is retired back here to his hometown. What do you love about Lima?
The food is always excellent anywhere you go. That's one thing. The other thing is very vibrant. People are very friendly. People will talk to you on the streets, you talk to, and they always, buenos dias, señor.
For all of the people coming to APEC, what do you hope they leave Lima having experienced?
I think they get to appreciate the architecture, and I hope that they get to meet some people and get well impressed by how friendly people are.
I won't be able to see everything, but Julio suggested a few key places to visit. First stop, Central Lima, a United Nations World Heritage Site. In the main square, Plaza de Armas, preparations are underway for APEC around the presidential palace and the city's main cathedral. In this largely Catholic country, churches play a major role. Next stop, Huaca Puquiana. This is an active archaeological site right in the center of Lima. It dates back to 400 BC. The clay and adobe structures serve as ceremonial sites. Work to excavate the ruins continues. Next stop, Barranco, a bustling neighborhood known for its many ever-changing murals, street art that tells stories about what the city was, is, and will be. Like all great cities, Lima is many things at once. Rich with history, but also full of vibrant neighborhoods like Barranco, teeming with modern life, art, and culture. The neighborhood is in constant motion as people come and go while enjoying its cafes and galleries. Now it's on to El Malecón, a scenic walkway along the cliffs towering above the Pacific Ocean. People gather here to appreciate the many sculpture-filled parks while taking in the natural beauty of the sea. Like any good tourist, I want a souvenir of my time in Lima. There are many handmade items to choose from, ponchos like these made of alpaca fiber, made much the same way they were more than 2,000 years ago. All right, it's very comfortable. It's beautiful, yeah? A deal is struck and I have something to bring home. A reminder of Lima, the city, and the people who make it special. Jim Spellman, CGTN, Lima, Peru.
All right, so that wraps up our special program on Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Peru. I'm Li Dongning.
And I'm Pan Deng in Beijing. CGTN will keep you updated as President Xi Jinping's visit to Latin America continues. Do stay tuned.
Thanks for watching.